And the second feature of knowledge is certainty. As you know that according to A.J. Ayer, there are three features of knowledge or three conditions of knowledge. Number one, truth. Number second, certainty, and number third, right to certainty. So, number one, truth. Truth we have discussed already. Second, certainty. What is certainty? Certainty has been defined in many ways, but here in the third subsection of first chapter of the problem of knowledge book, A.J. Ayer is talking against that notion of certainty, which holds that certainty consists in being in a special state of mind. According to A.J. Ayer, knowing does not consist in being in a special state of mind. So those who say that knowledge is nothing but a peculiar state of mind, A.J. Ayer is against those philosophers, and some of those philosophers you can find in Indian context as well. For example, Jaina theory of aparoksha jnana, that is mati, shruta is pratyaksha, and anumana in mati, and then shruta is shabda. This is called this is called paroksh in Jaina, and it is peculiar to Jain epistemology that perception, inference, and verbal testimony are regarded as paroksh jnana, whereas three are aparoksha jnana, and they are avadhi, manah, paraya, and keval jnana. According to A.J. Ayer, there is nothing like avadhi, manah, paraya, and keval jnana. This is for your understanding sake, because in aparoksha jnana of Jaina, they believe that knowing consists in being in a special state of mind. That means that you get to know certain things intuitively. Intuitively means in aura of revelation, like this thing. So A.J. Ayer is going to reject this notion of certainty, and your topic for a couple of lectures basically has been this only. Today we are going to finish this topic, that is the second feature of knowledge or second condition of knowledge, that is certainty. So to keep this uh, purpose in mind, let us start. We have already started, in fact yesterday also we discussed certain points, and what we have done so far in certainty is this, that according to A.J. Ayer, there are philosophers who presume that knowledge consists in a kind of certainty which is intuitive certainty. And if you have that intuitive certainty, like revelation, like immediate perception, like kind of perception which has no interference of sense object contact, so according to A.J. Ayer, there is no such kind of certainty. And A.J. Ayer's argument is little bit complex, but if we try to understand this, then it will be very clear. What is that? So for our lucidity sake, for our understanding sake, let us divide his argument into two parts. Number one, argument which we have already discussed, and that argument you can name as at least one argument. And the second argument which we are going to discuss today, that is argument that is at least there is a cognitive state. So these are the two arguments, at least one, which we have done. There are three points which A.J. Ayer has suggested, which we have discussed already. I'm not going to that detail in that all 3 points, and I'm going to discuss with the second part of this argument, and that argument is about at least one cognitive state. So what is this? basically objection against Ayer's position, who rejects that knowing does not consist in being in a special state of mind, and knowing is nothing, sort of thing like Jaina's aparoksha jnana is. Knowing is not a mystical experience. Knowing is not intuitive knowledge. Knowing is not something which is episodic. So, according to Ayer, he is going to consider this second second argument against which he is going to provide his own couple of arguments. So what is this argument against Ayer's this rejection of the intuitive kind of notion of knowledge? So according to Ayer, that my critics can object me that unless some states of mind are cognitive, how can we come to know anything? So this is called cognitivity argument, at least one cognitivity statement argument. So this is the argument that unless something is cognitive, you cannot just say that anything will be cognitive, because there has to be the basis of statements. Some basic cognitive statements need to be there. This is the argument given by opponents, and this is presupposed in fact by Ayer, that my opponents against me can say that unless there is some cognitive statement, how can you say that we can know anything at all? Because if you say that your this knowing depends upon that knowing depends upon that knowing, all sense perceptual experience, like if I have experience of table, then my this experience of table basically depends on my experience of my earlier experience of knowing the constituents of the table, and then your constituents of table experience depends on their constituents of things. So where this will end? So Ayer say that my opponents can say that I am committing a kind of infinite regress. So how can we answer that? Ayer basically is this formulates his opponent's point of view, and he said that opponent can say that there must be some statement of empirical fact which are directly verified. So there has to be some cognitive state of mind. Ayer has two arguments against such kind of perspectives. Number one statement, let us go into Ayer's first reply, and the first reply of Ayer is that what verifies the statement whether conclusively or not. As you know that there are many types of verifications in verification theory of meaning. So what verifies the statement whether conclusively or not is the existence of the experience, and not the confidence that we may have in some description of it. And then he says that, for example, what verifies the statement that I have a headache in my feeling a headache, not my having a feeling of confidence that the statement that I have a headache is true. That is, my justification for accepting the statement is not that I have a cognitive or any other aptitude towards it. It is simply that I am having the experience. So those who are saying that the cognitive statement has to be there underneath every statement which is regarded as true and certain, according to Ayer, there is nothing like that. That we have to presuppose that we need to have underlying all our statements a cognitive statement presupposition, because it is not the confidence of having a it is not the confidence of having a certain experience that actually verifies that experience, but my having that experience itself is the justification of that having experience. But mind it, Ayer is a realist, and he is not talking from the perspective of some idealist that my having experience is the sufficient justification for the cognitivity of that statement. But Ayer, when he is saying that my having experience itself is the justification, means that from the realist perspective, this is so. So in the beginning, that is why he is saying that my confidence is not something intuitively justifying that statement, but actually my having that experience means that justification comes from a kind of objective criteria, even though that is my experience. And here I may say that, and moreover, when you read page number 84 of this text, you'll again come to know that how Wittgenstein's privacy of experience argument rejected by Ager. This is going to be I suppose, pretty interesting. Now, this is the first argument, and the second argument is that, according to Ager, second argument of Ager against his opponent is that it does not prove that there are or can be any mental state of intuition which are such that their existence affords an absolute guarantee that one really is. In this sense, seeing that one thinks one sees, it must always remain possible that one is mistaken. So AJ is saying that intuition basically is not the justification for my having that statement as cognitive. So cognitivity is not something which is dependent on intuition. So this is the second argument. The first argument, that it is not my confidence which verifies the cognitivity of the particular statement, and the second is this, that intuition is not something which verifies the cognitivity of that statement. For example, according to Ager, truths of logic make no reference to persons. Consequently, they cannot be established by any mere description of some person's mental state, and this holds good whatever the mental state may be. So, for example, propositions of mathematics and logic, they are not regarded as cognitive by virtue of any intuitive realization, but they are cognitive because of their structure itself. So this is the second argument, and with this argument, this second objection is being regarded by Ager as being replied properly, and thus, according to Ager, it is designed to show not that we do not have the knowledge which we think we have, but only that knowing should not be represented as a matter of being in some infallible state of consciousness, for there cannot be such states. So this is the reply, and this is the conclusion of all the 5 replies given by Ager to his opponent. First 3 replies in the first argument of the opponent, and last 2 replies which we have done today basically is the second objection of the opponent of Ager. So altogether these 5 replies, they constitute basically Ager's response to the question which he raised in the beginning. That question was, does knowing consist in being in a special state of mind? Does knowing consist in being in a special state of mind? That means that does knowing consist in being a kind of certainty which is episodic, which is mystical, which is intuitive. So according to Ager, there is no such kind of certainty. So what is the basically crux? Crux is that there is no such mental state which is infallible. That when you are thinking, for example, what example I gave in the previous class, and before that, the example of cricket ball purchased from a mall with your brother, and you're coming to home and finding out as to what kind of brand you purchased, because you are not sure that which you selected among many brands available in the mall, and you have a kind of fight with your brother that we purchased this brand, and your brother is saying no, we had this brand purchased. And now you say that let us open it, but before opening the ball which will verify as to which ball was purchased, if you keep on fighting, arguing, and deciding on the basis of your mental state, only what is occurring in your state, that basically is the fight here between those who are accepting that knowing consists in being in a special state of mind, and they are opponents of Ager, and Ager who believes that knowing does not consist in being in a special state of mind, because knowing is not something which consists in basically in the aura of intuition or revelation. And so according to Azair, there is not any state of mind which could be regarded as infallible state of mind. And there are many false notions discussed by Azair, which is pretty interesting for you all to go through. If you go in the text, I'll find that in basically the at the end of this discussion, you'll find some of the false notions discussed by Azair, and those false notions are like false stories, and it's really very interesting to read those examples of Azair. One example is given by Azair in the context of Berkeley. So what was the context? Context was does knowing consists in being in a special state of mind. So this all is rejected by Azair, that knowing does not consist in being in special state of mind, because there is no such state. And in this context, he is going to represent certain philosophers, certain positions, because so far we have not mentioned any Western position as to whom Azair has been targeting all along his discussion here. So all I said was Jaina's position. Of course, that is okay, but now at the end of his discussion, after establishing that there is no such mental state which could be regarded as cognitive, that is knowledge state, he is going to mention some philosophers. And the first philosopher he has mentioned is Berkeley. And you know Berkeley is what? Berkeley is idealist, isn't it? In Berkeley is idealist, and this all arguments are directed against idealist. Not only here, but also in semester 4, you'll see that the debate between realist and idealist is the basic issue against which actually all these realists are writing their writings from the perspective of realism and against the perspective of idealism. So you'll find the paper 1 semester 4, and paper is certainty by Azair, and that paper, that essay, you'll find that the same kind of approach, philosophical approach, which Azair is expressing here, and which Azair has expressed in your textbook in BA, that is language truth and logic, that is logical positivistic perspective about verification theory of meaning. So the same you're finding here also, and so you'll enjoy it here. What he's saying about certain philosophers. One is Berkeley. What is this Berkeley? Quote unquote, he's saying that Berkeley first have raised the dust and then complain we cannot see it. This is basically at least position that who say that knowledge basically consists in being in a special state of mind. And then according to Azair, starting from the premise that consciousness in the sense of cognitive awareness must always be consciousness of something, they have perplexed themselves with such questions as what consciousness is in itself and how it is related to the things or facts which are its objects. So this is basically Azair here is talking about intentionality of consciousness. That is consciousness is the consciousness of something. So the intentionality of consciousness, that is the consciousness of something, is something which is very much the issue between the debate of the debate between realist and idealist. What is the debate? Whether objectless consciousness possible or not. Whether objectless consciousness possible or not, like Brahman. Whether the idea of absolute reality in Advaita Vedanta a possibility or not. So according to realists it's not possible, according to idealists it is possible. So this is the basic crux which you have seen here. Now false notion, he is talking about Berkeley, then he is talking about existentialist philosophers, particularly Jean-Paul Sartre, Nobel laureate. And what he is saying, according to Azair, the nothing, that is being a nothingness, you must have gone through that being a nothingness and the idea of nothing. According to Azair, the nothing as if it were a special sort of agent, one of whom functions was to divide consciousness from itself. So what is nothing? Being a nothingness. Nothing is void, as in Buddhism also you'll find. I'm giving Indian context so that you can relate this critique of Ajair much better. So what is this void? What is this nothing? What is this shunya? What is this nothing of Jean-Paul Sartre? So according to Ajair, they create a notion of nothing, and they create this notion, and they search that there is something external in this world corresponding to this idea of nothing, which is very laughable. And then he's kind of criticizing Plato also. Plato seems to have thought that abstract entities were the only things that could be really known. So according to Azair, this is basically kind of funny thing that you create abstract in your mind, and then you think that that is the only thing which is knowable, because all other things are knowable, and they are kind of objects which are subject to doubt. So this is the one thing, false notions. Again, uh, again you can ask yourself as to why reject certainty as a special state of mind. Why Azair is doing all this? So what I have understood is that by way of rejecting that certainty does not exist in a special state of mind, Ayer held that truth, that is the first feature of knowledge, need not be a necessary truth. It is a consistent truth, a factual truth, which may come out to be false or someone which may come out to be false for someone or in future, and which may not be true in some other context. So truth is not something which is regarded as sacrosanct. Truth is something very much regarded as something which is to be rejected later on. That means truth, that is the first condition of knowledge, is not something which you regard as Trikala Badhit kind of thing, that Trikala Badhit Sat. It is not Trikala Badhit according to Azair. And truth is something which might be doubted very much. And this is the first, about the first feature. And about the second feature, you can say that certainty is not absolute certainty. If there is kind of absolute certainty like that cannot change in the future, so certainty is not absolute certainty obtained through aura of revelation, but it's a certainty obtained in the empirical world, where we talk about degrees of certainty. Degrees of certainty is a notion in Wittgenstein as well in semester 4. So so basically, what does this mean? It does mean that the two features of knowledge which we are going to finish just in our discussion, that is the truth and certainty, are to be understood in the context of the structure of Ayer's epistemology, that is logical positivistic perspective. Although there are three features of knowledge, that is truth, certainty, and right to certainty, but that doesn't mean that truth, certainty, and right to certainty are something which is Trikala Badit, which is a transcendental, which is revealed in aura of revelation, which is absolutely certain. So truth is something which is consistent truth, and the idea of consistent truth you will find in G. Moore's paper on certainty, and there you'll have a deep debate on that issue. But here, uh, consistent truth of Azair is something which may be true and may not be true in future, and which very much could be subject of doubt. And the second feature of knowledge, that is certainty. Certainty is not something which is absolute certain, but certainty is something which may be certain and which may not be certain as that much. That means that there could be degrees of certainty. So the only what is certain can be known. Now the strict sense of certainty is talking about is here that that there are philosophers who say that there are a strict sense of knowing, and there is a not so strict sense of knowing. So the question arises, and Azair takes on this question as to, he says that, can we say that only what is certain can be known? That is not to use the word know except with implication that what was known was necessarily true. Can we say like this? according to Azair, this basically is not the position. That if you take that certainty in strict sense of the term, that is absolute certainty, then strict sense of knowing will result into what? It will result into most of what we now correctly claim to know would not be knowable at all, because many things uh, could be beyond, not beyond doubt. And if things are not beyond doubt, then they cannot be said to be known, because they are not absolute truth, or they are not complete certainty objects. So according to Azair, if we follow the strict sense of knowing, then that will happen that we will mostly not know what we now claim to know, because in the empirical world, that is in empirical knowledge, so to say, we have only normal certainty and normal truth, and there is nothing like truth which is truth of past, present and future uh, space and time. So this is the one kind of admonition that Azair is giving to philosophers, to us, that strict sense of knowing will basically land us in a place where we need to reject all those which we claim that we know. So basically, this strict sense of knowing, that is those definitions of truth and certainty are not acceptable, which is accepted in the strict sense of knowing. So what is the conclusion? According to Ayer, actually it is not the case that a statement by being necessary became incapable of being doubted. That means that the doubt is very much possible in case of truth, that is first feature and condition of knowledge, and certainty, that is the second feature or condition of knowledge. But one question can be raised here: what kind of certainty is this? This you question can always raise against Azair, that what kind of certainty is this? Now this uh, if you raise this as to what kind of certainty is this, then of course according to Ayer, actually it is not the case that a statement by being necessary became incapable of being doubted, but always this is not incapable of being doubted is not the case. That means that certainty is very much not the certainty which is sacrosanct, but certainty also like notion of truth, which is not Trikala but which is basically a consistent notion of truth, which may be true or may be false. But then certainty also, like this certainty is not something which is absolute certainty, but may be certain and may not be certain. So according to Azair, we have to adjust our feature or condition of knowledge, although truth and certainty are features or conditions of knowledge, but they have to be defined in a certain ways. So this finishes the first two features and conditions of knowledge, and now we are going to the third feature or condition of knowledge, that is right to certainty, that is pramad, that is evidence. That is the third feature or condition of knowledge. As I said that according to Azair, there are three conditions of knowledge, three features of knowledge: truth, certainty and right to certainty. So that we are not going to do today, we are going to do tomorrow. That is the third feature or condition of knowledge, the right to certainty, and we'll finish tomorrow that, because that is not very longest kind of thing. It's a brief statement by Azair. We'll do that, and then that means that the one portion of our first chapter is going to get over by tomorrow, that is Azair's first chapter, and then we'll have Gettier in the next week, and on Thursday and Friday I'll have discussion with you on Gettier, and Saturday we'll have one lecture on Gettier by Professor Gopal Sahu of Department of Philosophy, Allahabad University. He is head of department there. He'll deliver his talk on Gettier's problem and its solutions, resolutions, dissolutions. So I have this idea in mind, I had this plan in mind, that before the lecture given by Professor Gopal Sahu, you students of PG semester 3 are equipped with the basic understanding of the Gettier problem, so that you can enjoy that lecture of Professor Gopal Sahu of Allahabad University. So now this is the, I suppose that today we are finished with our lecture today, and if there are any questions are most welcome. You can ask any question on these two features of knowledge. So Chandan, hello Chandan, Manisiva, hello Manisiva.
Hello, sir.
You please see that what is the argument
Yes,
given by Isaiah. The argument given by Isaiah about certainty is pretty interesting. I suppose that you have enjoyed it. If there is any question, you can ask. Otherwise, you can ask in the next class also.
Sir, I'll study once and then I'll ask in the next class.
Yeah, please go through the text now and note down your
Yes, sir.
questions, and you can WhatsApp your questions also.
okay, sir.
Okay,
You
sir.
can inbox me your questions as well. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Take care. Okay. See you then. Bye bye for today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good day.